Before we begin, if you have a favorite journey from these nights, leave it in the comments. It helps me know where to take you next. Now, settle in. Chapter 1. The Sealed Door. You step through the narrow doorway and into the cabin, and the air that meets you is already different from the air of the terminal. A little cooler, a little stilled, carrying the faint pressed smell of recycled warmth and clean fabric, and in the moment you cross that threshold, you feel something behind you begin to release, the way a breath releases when you have been holding it without quite knowing. The aisle stretches ahead of you, low and narrow, lit by the blue-tinged glow of the overhead panels, a light that is softer than the fluorescent brightness of the gate waiting room, a light that already feels more like evening than like any functional place, and you move through it slowly, one hand trailing along the tops of the seat backs for balance, the synthetic fabric brushing warm and slightly textured against your fingertips with each step, each headrest passing beneath your palm like something familiar and unhurried. And then, behind you, the sound comes. That low, resonant thunk of the cabin door sealing shut, heavy and final. Not a slam, but a settle, a sound like a large book being placed gently on a wide wooden table, and with it the last of the terminal noise gives way, the gate announcements and trailing voices and the small frictions of the world outside all receding into the quieter, more contained air of this sealed and separate space. You pause for a moment in the aisle, letting the sound of the door settle into you, feeling how the air has stilled around it, and then ahead of you, the overhead bins begin to close. First one, somewhere near the front of the cabin. A soft click that carries in the quiet, and then another, a little further along. And then another, moving toward you in a gentle sequence. Each one a small, muffled sound that closes a little more of the space around you. You find the row, 34, and turn toward the window side, and there is seat 34 already waiting, the cushion shaped and ready, and on the seat there is a thin blanket, folded in a neat square, pale gray, or perhaps pale blue in this light, its edges clean and even, and you feel something in your chest settle at the sight of it, at the simple fact that it is already there. You slide in carefully, turning your body and lowering yourself. One hand on the headrest as you ease down, and the seat receives you without ceremony. Just the soft give of the cushion beneath you, the armrest solid under your left elbow, the cool upholstered curve of the headrest against the back of your skull. And for a moment you simply sit, letting the seat take your weight, letting your shoulders drop from wherever they had been carrying themselves. Another overhead bin closes somewhere behind you. Another soft click, and then one further still, each sound a little more distant than the last. And the aisle is settling into its quiet now, the blue light humming gently above, and the blanket waiting there beside you, and the door behind you has been closed for some time now, and the world outside has grown very still. The stillness settles around you, and you become aware, slowly, of the gentle curve of the fuselage at your left shoulder. It has been there all along, exactly where you expected it to be. Chapter 2. The window at your shoulder. You shift your left shoulder into the curved wall of the fuselage, and it is there exactly where you expected it, gently curving to meet your shoulder blade, a little more solid than the seat back, a little cooler through the thin fabric of your sleeve, and you let yourself lean into it very slightly, not quite resting yet, but beginning to rest, finding the small angle that lets the wall take some of what your shoulder has been quietly holding. The window is there at the level of your eye when you turn your head to the left, its oval frame the same pale interior gray as the cabin wall around it, and through the glass outside there is amber, the glow of the terminal building smearing softly across the wet tarmac below, long amber streaks that have no hard edges, only the blurred warmth of reflected light on a wet surface, pools and trails of it spreading and overlapping in a way that is very gentle to look at, that asks nothing of your eyes. You turn your head a degree or two further, and your cheekbone grazes the surface of the window. Just for a moment, just the faintest edge of contact, and it is cool and smooth, a measured coolness, the kind that feels calm rather than cold. And you stay near it for a breath, your cheek just barely not touching the glass, feeling the temperature of it radiating softly in the narrow space between your skin and its surface. Outside, beyond the amber reflections, you can make out the dark geometry of the gate structure, the jetway folded away now, the broad horizontal shapes of the terminal roof, the mounted lights along the building's face, all softened by the wet air between you and them. Everything solid made a little approximate, a little easy, the way the world looks through glass in the rain. You reach for the blanket, lifting it gently by one corner, and it opens quietly across your lap, settling without any weight to speak of, a thin warmth beginning where the fabric comes to rest along your thighs, and you smooth it once with the flat of your hand, feeling the soft weave of it beneath your palm. And beneath the floor, beneath the whole quiet length of the aircraft, the engines are there, a low continuous murmur, patient and even, not a sound that demands anything of you, only a sound that is simply present the way a river heard from inside a house is simply present, woven into the texture of the space without asking you to attend to it. You settle your right hand in your lap beneath the blanket, and the warmth there is gentle and immediate, the small warmth of your own hand meeting the thin warmth of the fabric. And the amber light moves softly across the tarmac outside, and the engines murmur below you, patient and low, and the curved wall of the fuselage holds steady at your shoulder, cool and close and still. Chapter 3. Taxi into dark. You feel it before you see it, a very slight, almost imperceptible shift in the quality of the vibration beneath you, the engine note easing from its patient idle into something fractionally more sustained, and then the curved wall at your shoulder begins, almost without your noticing, to move, and you understand that the plane has begun to roll. It is the slowest kind of movement, the kind that barely distinguishes itself from stillness, more like a loosening than a departure, the whole long body of the aircraft turning, slowly and without urgency, away from the gate, and the amber light that has been resting still against the outside of the window begins at last to drift. The apron unfolds past you in long, unhurried arcs, pools of low amber from the service light set flush into the tarmac, their glow wide and soft-edged, neither demanding nor dim, but simply present, the kind of light that asks nothing of you, that lies across the wet ground without reaching. And you watch one pool approach from the far edge of the oval window, drift through its center, and pass on toward the trailing edge of the wing, and behind it another follows in the same slow arc, and behind it another, each arriving and departing like slow arc, and behind that another, each arriving and departing like slow and even breaths. Beyond the apron lights, the terminal is still visible, its long pale facade, the rows of gates with their warm interior windows, the departure boards you can no longer read from this distance. And all of it is moving now, very gently, the whole lighted face of the building receding by imperceptible degrees, the way a lit house draws back when you walk away from it down a long darkened lane, each moment placing it a little further, a little smaller, not by any single perceptible step, but by a continuous, almost invisible diminishment, until it is less a building and more a warmth, a glow, a soft amber suggestion behind you. The engine hum beneath you deepens fractionally as the plane turns onto the taxiway. Not louder precisely, but fuller, as though the note has settled at last into its proper register, a low chord that rises through the floor and through the seat frame and into the bones at the base of your spine, soft and even and constant. And you can feel the vibration now, through the seat back, through the cushion at your thighs. The first true motion of the aircraft translating itself through the frame and into the whole quiet length of your body. And it is gentler than you might have expected, more like a warmth than a tremor, as though the plane itself is breathing steadily beneath you and your body is simply beginning, without any effort at all, to breathe with it. A faint hiss traces along the seam of the oval window beside you, barely audible, the sound of pressurization finding its level, and outside, another amber pool drifts slowly past, and the terminal windows are smaller now, the whole warm line of them contracting toward the window's far edge, and ahead the taxiway curves away through a darkness marked only by the soft blue glow of the edge lights, and the cabin holds its own warmth around you, and the plane rolls on and on through the late night quiet, its great weight moving through the dark with an ease that asks nothing of you, nothing at all. Chapter 4. The Runway's Last Light. The plane slows, and a long, unhurried pause opens. Not the stillness of the gate, where the engines were quiet and the ground held everything without question, but a different stillness. The stillness of something gathered and patient, holding its breath without urgency, and outside your oval window, the runway unfolds in one long straight line, the amber centerline lights stretching ahead into the dark at even intervals, each small and unwavering and exact, extending until the distance softens them and the line becomes simply a warmth at the edge of the dark. You sit with that view for what might be a long time, or a short one. It is difficult to say, and it does not matter. The amber lights resting steady in the darkness ahead, each one perfectly spaced from the next, and the low blue edge markers running in two even lines along either side of the runway, narrowing very gradually toward a vanishing point far ahead where the dark gathers them quietly in, and the night beyond the end of the runway is the same soft, untroubled dark that has held you since you settled into the seat. And then, without any single moment of announcement, the engine note gathers itself, steadily, evenly, with no urgency, into a deeper and fuller chord, a resonance that you feel first in your seat back as a gentle and even pressure, and then in the bones of your hips and your lower back, and then in your chest, a low vibration sitting just beneath the sternum, so steady and so even that it moves from sensation into something closer to warmth, and the plane begins, slowly at first and then less slowly, to move. The amber centerline lights come toward you at first with the same measured pace as the apron lights before them, each one arriving at the edge of the window and strobing past beneath the wing, and then they come a little faster and a little faster still, the spacing between them compressing as the speed increases, each light spending less and less time in your field of view, until they are no longer individual points but a single continuous stroke of gold running beneath you, a soft blur, a warmth rather than a line, and the engines hold their chord, full and even and steady, and the engines hold their chord, full and even and steady, and the seat back holds you lightly. And then, in the way that certain thresholds have no single precise moment, in the way that the edge of sleep has no exact border you can name afterward, the ground simply is no longer there beneath you. You feel it first as a small release of pressure, the slight weight that had been pressing you back easing, a gentle lightness moving upward through the seat of your hips and along the length of your spine, and there is a quiet, barely perceptible sensation behind the sternum, a small opening, as though the chest has become a little roomier, the air inside it a little slower and lighter and easier to hold. Outside, the runway's amber lights are below you now, angling away, and the terminal's warm glow is visible somewhere behind the curve of the wing, smaller than it was, softer, a gentle amber smear against the wide dark, and the engines settle into a new register, fuller and lower and entirely steady, a sound the body is already beginning to receive as the sound of being carried, of being held, of having nothing remaining to do but rest here in the dark and the warmth and the slow, unhurried air, with your hands where you left them, and the blanket soft across your lap, and the overhead light amber and still above you. Chapter 5. The City Dissolving. You press your fingertips gently to the cool oval of the window, and the city is still there below you, spread across the dark in long amber lines and pale white clusters, the grid of streets crossing one another in patterns that stretch out in every direction farther than your eye can comfortably follow, quieter from this height than you ever imagined a city could appear, all of its sound and motion reduced to something that simply glows, that simply rests there against the dark earth like an enormous gentle lamp set out across the plain. You let your eyes rest on it without trying to make anything particular out of it, without searching for a street you recognize or a building whose shape you know, only watching the warm amber of the lamp-lit avenues where they meet the cooler white of lit windows and the occasional bright speck of something you can no longer identify from up here. And this is the right way to look at it now, as a pattern rather than a place, as light rather than city, something warm and faintly spread and already beginning, very slowly, to be left behind. The plane tilts, very gently. A long, unhurried lean to the left, the kind that takes many seconds to complete and never feels abrupt, and the city shifts with it, the grid of it angling so that you see it now on a slight diagonal, the lines of streets running away from you at a different bearing, and somewhere far beneath you the ordinary business of evening continues. But none of that reaches up here. None of it finds its way through the hum and the dark and the glass. And the cabin remains exactly as it was, warm and low, and settled into its own steady rhythm. The wing is visible just beyond the glass, the pale, clean curve of it resting against the amber-smeared lower sky, and there is a very faint tremor in the window beneath your fingertips, a slight distant creak from somewhere within the airframe as it accommodates the turn, and then it is gone, resolved back into the broader hum before you have quite finished noticing it, and the window is smooth and cool again beneath your touch. You draw the blanket a little higher across your lap, not because you are cold, the cabin air is warm and still, but because the window glass is cool and the blanket is soft, and the contrast between the two is a quiet, wordless comfort, arriving without being sought, asking nothing in return, and your hand settles back against the fabric and rests there. And then the cloud begins to come. There is no distinct moment of arrival, no edge you cross, only a gradual change, the glow of the city below becoming slightly less distinct than it was a moment ago, the amber lines losing a little of their sharpness at the edges, and then you notice a thin grey-white mist drifting past the wing, and staying, thickening, and the city below begins to soften. The distinct lines of streets becoming suggestions of lines, the amber and pale white blending together into one low, wide, even glow that spreads and diffuses as the cloud rises up around you. The window shows you less of the city with each passing moment, less light now than the impression of light, less impression than a warm and fading color dissolving slowly, completely into gray. Your fingertips rest against the cool glass and stay there, and below you the city releases its last clear shape and gives itself quietly over to the gray. Chapter 6. The gray between. The cloud is all around you now. The window has become a soft, luminous rectangle of gray, not dark, not empty, but lit from somewhere behind and below, the amber warmth of the city still there beneath all those layers of mist, diffused so completely that it has lost all direction, all specificity, and arrives here only as a gentle, sourceless glow, a paleness that seems to come from the cloud itself, rather than from anywhere beyond it. The cloud moves slowly past the oval, not swirling, not rushing, simply drifting with the steady purpose of something vast and unhurried. And you watch it for a while without expectation, without wanting it to change or to part or to show you anything beneath, simply watching the soft gray move in its slow and patient way past the glass. You lean your head gently toward the window. Your cheek finds the glass, and it is cool. A steady, still coolness, not startling, simply present. a surface that holds the same temperature it held when you first touched it and does not warm or shift or change beneath your skin. The blanket is still spread across your lap, still soft and warm, and the contrast between the cool glass at your cheek and the warmth gathered around your lap and legs is a very small thing, a very simple thing, the kind of thing you notice without quite deciding to notice it. And there is something in that contrast, something in the cool and the warm held at the same time, without conflict, without effort. That is exactly right. That is precisely what this hour asks for. The engine note has settled further since you first sat down. It is lower now, longer, a broad and even chord that continues at the same steady pitch, the same steady intensity, filling the air of the cabin without variation or peak. The kind of sound the body begins to receive, not as something separate from itself, but as a continuation of its own steadiness, as if the hum and the slow rhythmic rise and fall of breathing and the quiet warmth of the blanket have all become part of the same unhurried whole. The overhead lights have dimmed to almost nothing, a very faint amber glow at the edges of the bin above and the curve of the seat in front, enough to make out shapes but not details. And the passengers around you have settled entirely, their voices long gone, the small sounds of arrangement and adjustment fallen away, and the cabin has become simply a warm and quiet enclosure, moving steadily through the dark and the grey, held by the hum, held by the cloud, held by the long, even note of the engines going on and on at the same pitch, and the same steadiness as before. You press your cheek a little more fully against the glass, and let your eyes fall closed, and behind your eyelids there is the same soft grey that filled the window a moment ago, not dark, not empty, only soft and still and luminous in its quiet way. And the engine continues its low, even chord, and the cloud continues to drift slowly past the oval outside, and the blanket is still warm across your lap, and the glass is still cool and still against your cheek, and there is nothing that requires anything of you now, nothing at all, and the grey behind your eyelids deepens very slowly into something softer, something warmer, something that is beginning, very gently, to resemble the quiet that lies just behind sleep. Chapter 7. The Blanket's Weight. You reach down, very slowly, and draw the blanket a little further toward you, pulling it until the edge tucks loosely against your sides, and the full weight of it settles across your feet, across your ankles, across the length of your legs, lighter than you might have expected, and yet somehow present in that lightness, warm in a way that already feels settled, already familiar, as though the blanket has been there far longer than a few quiet minutes. The cabin around you has grown very dim. Somewhere 2 rows ahead, a single reading light still burns, a soft pale circle falling onto someone's lap, and beyond that, everything is shadow, and the gentle blue-gray of pressurized dark, and the darkness asks nothing of you, has no edges you need to find, simply rests there the way darkness rests when it has been allowed to become its full and natural self. Beneath the blanket, your feet have already begun to warm. You notice this without drawing any particular attention to it, simply the fact of it, rising slowly into awareness, the way warmth always does, gradually without announcement. The soles of your feet first, the quiet sensation of heat accumulating between your skin and the thin synthetic fabric, and then spreading upward very slowly along the tops of your feet, along the long bones of your feet, seeping softly into the ankles now, the warmth moving the way warmth always moves when something has been still long enough to let it. The engine continues its low, even voice beneath you, beneath the seat, beneath the floor, a sound that has become, by now, almost indistinguishable from the silence it fills, almost a quality of the air rather than a sound within it, a broad and constant frequency that hums through the seat back and through the armrests and through the armrests and through the faint vibration of the pressurized air itself. And you have stopped thinking of it as a sound at all. It is simply the room the cabin has become, above the blanket line. You can feel the faint cool of recycled air, the slightest movement along the surface of the fabric without crossing beneath it, and the difference between the cool above and the warmth below has become a kind of clarity. A gentle border between two temperatures, the blanket holding the warmth on one side while the air does what cabin air always does, drifting slowly along the ceiling, settling lightly along every surface. The warmth has reached your calves now, or it has been there for a while, and you are only noticing it in this moment. And that is the nature of this kind of warmth, the slow kind, the kind that does not announce itself but is simply present when you think to look for it, spreading upward through the long muscles, softening them in the way warmth softens everything it touches, gently, without asking anything in return. The reading light 2 rows ahead holds its small pale circle. The engine holds its low and even sound. The blanket holds everything warm on your side of it, and the cool air holds the space above, and between the two of them something very settled has formed around you, a kind of enclosure that was not there an hour ago, and is simply and quietly here now, and the grey behind the window stays still, and the blanket stays warm, and none of it requires anything of you at all. Chapter 8. The Hum Below. The engines have found a different register now, lower than before, or perhaps not lower but settled, the way a voice settles when it has been speaking long enough that all effort leaves it, and what remains is only the sound itself, pure and even and very deep, coming not only through the air now but through the seat, through the fabric of the seat, back where your shoulder blades rest, through the armrests where your forearms lie, a vibration so low and so sustained that it has ceased to feel like vibration and has become something more like a presence, something surrounding the particular quality the air takes on at cruising altitude when the whole vessel has found its long unhurried pace. The cabin has gone quiet in the way cabins go quiet, late into a night flight. Far forward, several rows ahead, it is difficult to say exactly how many, someone shifts in a seat, the small sound of fabric against fabric, and then it is gone, and there is only the engines again, only the hum of the floor and the seat and the armrests, and the grey-black oval of the window beside you, and the faint amber of the seatbelt sign somewhere far down the aisle, just bright enough to exist, not bright enough to call for anything. You notice, without having made any decision, that your ankles are no longer crossed. At some point, you cannot say when exactly, they simply uncross themselves, and your feet rest side by side now on the floor beneath the blanket, and your legs have fallen slightly outward, the way legs do when the muscles that have been holding them upright finally release their quiet habitual effort. And the calves are soft against the seat, soft and settled, softer than they were some time ago. The warmth continues to move through you very slowly, rising from the feet, which have been warm for a while now, moving upward through the soles and into the ankles and into the long muscles of the calves, and the calves have received it, the way everything receives warmth when it has stopped working, simply accepting, letting it settle in without resistance, the muscles easy and loose against the surface of the seat, the weight of your legs given over now to everything beneath them. The engine hum moves through the armrest, into the elbow, a low and sustained tone that is not a pulse but something continuous, unbroken, and you let your arm rest a little heavier there. Let the armrest hold more of its weight, and the tone continues beneath you, through the enclosed and pressurized space of the cabin, and you have stopped listening to it, and have begun simply to be inside it, the way you are inside the warmth. Your legs feel pleasantly heavy, a heaviness that is not uncomfortable, but the particular kind that means the weight has been given over completely, given over without effort, and the muscles no longer hold anything because the seat is holding all of it, and the blanket is holding the warmth, and the engines are holding the low, even sound of everything continuing, and the grey-black oval of the window holds the dark outside, very quietly, very still, very quiet. The amber of the seatbelt sign glows far and soft down the aisle. The engine hum moves through the floor, through the seat, through the long and heavy quiet of your legs, very slowly, and your calves remain soft, and your ankles remain loose, and the warmth continues upward from your feet through your calves, slowly, slowly, and there is nothing anywhere in the cabin that requires your attention, nothing at all, only the low sustained sound moving through everything that has already grown still. Chapter 9. The Weight of Shoulders. The warmth has continued upward, very slowly, in the way that warmth at altitude always moves. Unhurried, following some interior current that has nothing to do with your direction, through the long muscles of your thighs, which have given up what they were holding, and into the wide and quiet space of your abdomen, where it rests now, spreading gently outward with each breath you take. And you become aware without urgency, without any thought that needs to be carried anywhere, that your shoulder, the one pressed lightly into the curved wall of the fuselage, has softened there, against that smooth and slightly warm surface, in a way you did not ask it to, and cannot quite remember asking it not to. It simply let go, at some point in the last several minutes, without being asked, the way a hand loosens when the person beside you has fallen asleep and there is no longer any reason to hold on, the way a face softens in a room that has gone quiet and decided to stay that way. The engine hum continues, exactly as it has continued since long before you noticed it, low and steady and entirely without edge, no longer quite a sound so much as the texture of the air itself, something the cabin is simply made of now, something you have stopped hearing the way you stop hearing your own breathing when you have grown very still. It moves through the seat, through the floor, through the curved walls of the fuselage around you, a single sustained note that carries no message and requires no response from you at all, simply a steadiness, a continuity, something that has been going on and will go on long past any moment when you need to be aware of it. Your hands lie loose on the blanket. You can feel the soft weight of it across your knuckles, the faint warmth of your own palms where they rest open against the fabric, and they are not holding anything, not curled around anything, simply resting open, as if they have forgotten what holding was for and see no reason to remember it just now. The window beside you is a dark oval, still and entirely even, the soft uniform dark of cloud at altitude, neither asking to be noticed nor asking to be ignored, simply there at the far edge of your awareness, a shape you once looked at and have since allowed to soften into the background of the night. And somewhere in the quiet and unhurried interval between one breath and the next, you notice that your jaw has been unclenching, gradually, incrementally, over some gentle stretch of time you cannot quite measure. The way a house cools at night, and the walls find their ease, not with any sound, not suddenly, only settling into the angle at which they no longer need to be held. Your teeth have parted slightly, your tongue has come to rest against the floor of your mouth. The muscles of your face have softened in the way they soften, when there is nothing left to say and nowhere left to be. The warmth continues upward into your chest now, into the broad and easy space of your rib cage, which rises and falls at its own unhurried pace, entirely without instruction from you. Your chest rising and then settling, and your shoulders releasing a little further into the seat back with each breath out, a little further still, settling each time more completely into the support that has been here all along, holding you, as the hum holds the cabin, as the dark holds the cloud outside the window, as the long and quiet night holds all of it, gently, without asking anything of you in return. Chapter 10. The Grey That Holds. The cloud outside the window remains exactly as it has been, grey and soft and uniformly lit from somewhere within itself. And there is something in that constancy, in the fact that it has not changed and does not seem to intend to change, that requires nothing of you at all. The plane does not move through the clouds so much as rest inside it, suspended in the even grey, as though the grey were something solid and warm, something cupped, and the plane simply a thing being held within that cupping, carried, without any effort of its own. You are aware of the window only distantly now, only as a pale oval shape at the outermost edge of your vision, soft enough that the line between looking at it and not looking at it has become very difficult to find. Your eyelids are heavy, not uncomfortably so, not with any urgency or demand, only heavy in the way eyelids become when there is nothing that needs to be seen and the body has made its own quiet decision about the matter. They lower of their own weight, and then perhaps you lift them slightly, and then they lower again, and the difference between the window being there and not being there has grown very small, a distinction that makes no distinction at all, the pale oval simply a softness where the dark is a little lighter, nothing more. The engine hum cycles very slightly, not changing, not varying in any way you could name, only breathing in the way a sustained note breathes when it has been held long enough to become something other than sound. And it has become simply the sound of being here, of the cabin, of the warm and contained air, of the night through which everything continues to pass, unhurried, without destination you need to think about. Your breath has slowed, without any effort on your part, to something very close to the rhythm of the engines, in, slowly, through the nose, the chest rising just slightly, the ribcage expanding in the quietest possible way, and then a pause, a moment of perfect stillness at the top of the breath, where nothing is moving and nothing needs to, and then the breath releasing, easing outward, your chest settling, your shoulders settling with it, the whole of you descending a little further into the seat with each breath out, into the blanket, into the warmth that has gathered there without your noticing. In, slowly, and a moment of stillness, and then out. So slowly, your chest lowering, your shoulders softening, your hands remaining loose and open on the blanket. And again, the breath returning in the same unhurried way, the chest rising gently, the small and quiet pause at the top, and then the long and easy release, a little quieter than the one before it, a little slower, a little more complete, your body settling further each time, further and further, without end. The grey outside the window is the same grey it has always been, unchanged, unwavering, and it will remain so, and there is no reason to watch it, no reason to turn away from it, only the pale oval at the edge of things, and the warmth of the blanket, and the low and continuing sound of the engines, and your breath moving in and moving out, so slowly now, so quietly, the pauses growing longer and softer between each breath, the releases growing deeper, the whole of you becoming, very gradually, a single warm and undemanding weight, held here in the grey that holds everything, simply resting. The breath continues to soften, each slow exhale a little quieter than the last, and that low, continuous hum of the engines settles into you, the way warmth settles into old wood evenly, without hurry, filling every small hollow and seam. Your face already loosening, the small muscles around your eyes releasing one by one in a way you are barely aware of, your jaw growing heavy and soft, the space behind your teeth unclenching, your tongue resting easily, and the weight of your own skull finding the pillow, the way water finds its level, slowly, without effort, simply given over to where it wants to be. Your neck releasing everything it held through the long hours, all that quiet, invisible tension dissolved now into something warmer, a gentle radiance spreading down through your shoulders dropping a little, your arms resting heavier, the blanket soft against the backs of your hands, faintly warm, carrying the smell of something close and unhurried, the particular stillness of a space that has been traveled in quietly for a very long time. And the hum beneath everything is steady, steadier than breathing. An endless low note that asks nothing of you, only continues, only holds. and the warmth is rising now from somewhere below the weight of the blanket, from your feet where they rest without pressing, from your calves grown still and pleasantly heavy, moving upward through your knees, your thighs wide and easy against the seat, your hips sinking, the warmth collecting in your belly the way light collects in still water, not moving quickly, not moving at all really, only spreading, only deepening. Rising through your chest with each breath that passes through it, each exhale a little longer than the one before, a little slower, releasing something you didn't know you were still holding. And your hands are loose now, fingers softly curled the way hands fall when they are truly done. And the warmth still rising through your throat, behind your eyes, filling the back of your skull with something without color and without edge. And your breath is moving so slowly now, each inhale a long quiet drawing in, the pause between the in and the out growing longer, growing softer, the exhale carrying everything gently away, and the warmth is still rising, still spreading, and your breath is. The warmth is still with you, resting somewhere deep and unhurried, and there is no need to do anything with it, no need to follow it anywhere, only the quiet weight of it holding you softly where you are. And when your eyes open, gently, without quite meaning them to, there is a window beside you, wide and pale and faintly lit from below, and beyond it a sea of cloud stretches out in every direction, still and unhurried as the rest you are already carrying with you. The cabin hums steadily around you, low and even, and the footwell is close and solid against your feet, and above the cloud plain the stars are too numerous to name, and you do not need to name them. You simply let your gaze rest somewhere among them, and already you are not quite watching anymore. Already you are drifting somewhere below the light, below the stars, beneath the soft and endless cloud. Chapter 1. The Quarter Shade. The cabin has been dark for perhaps an hour, or something close to an hour. You have not checked, and there is no particular reason to, because time in here has taken on a different quality, loose and without edges, moving at its own slow and unhurried pace, the way the air moves through the overhead vent just above your shoulder, so gently that you feel it less as a current than as a soft, continuous easing of the space around you. Around you the other seats hold sleeping shapes. A head resting against the curved wall of the fuselage, a shoulder turned toward the aisle, a folded blanket drawn close and still, and the only light that remains in the cabin is the faint, cool blue of the night. Mode strips along the ceiling, so dim they barely suggest the shape of the space you are settled into, barely do more than make the darkness visible to itself. Your shade, though, is still open. Just a quarter of the way, just a narrow band of window admitted, the rest of the world held back by the grey panel pulled most of the way down. And through that quarter opening, through that careful and particular gap, something is visible below that you have been watching for some time, without urgency, without any particular intention beyond the watching itself. It is the cloud surface, a broad plane of it, stretched below the aircraft, silver-grey under a diffuse and indirect light that must come from the moon somewhere above you. The moon's glow borrowed by the cloud and returned to you softened, the way light returns from still water, the way it returns from new snow seen at a distance. Not sharp, not bright, but carrying its own quiet luminescence, its own gentle suggestion of depth. The texture of the cloud surface from up here is soft, not sharp-edged, not dramatic. Nothing that would hold your attention on any other night in any other mood. Only this slow and even expanse of grey-white, undulant in a way so gradual you might almost call it still, a surface that gives the moonlight back without any particular emphasis. And beneath all of this, beneath the slow spread of the cloud plane and the faint blue overhead and the sleeping shapes in the seats around you, there is the engine sound. A sustained, low chord, deep and constant, that has been present since the moment you settled into this seat and has resolved itself, over this past hour or something near to it, From a thing you noticed into a thing you simply inhabit, the way you inhabit the temperature of a room once you have been inside it long enough. The way you inhabit any steady, utterly reliable thing. The chord does not rise. It does not shift in pitch or volume. It holds at the bottom of the frequency range, felt as much through the soles of your feet as through the ears, felt as a slight and even pressure in the seat beneath you, and that constancy is its own kind of comfort, the quiet proof that nothing has changed, that nothing needs to change, that the aircraft is doing exactly what it has been doing all along, and will go on doing. You let your eyes rest on the cloud surface through the quarter opening, not looking for anything in particular, not trying to make out any particular form or boundary, simply allowing the silver grey to fill that narrow rectangle of window, and you feel your breath slow very slightly, and the seat holds you, and the engine holds its single, even, constant note, and the clouds below go on spreading, vast and unhurried and entirely unconcerned. Chapter 2. The Clouds See. You lean very slightly toward the window, not moving in any way that would disturb the seat, just shifting your weight a fraction, enough to bring the shade edge into a slightly different relationship with your line of sight. And in doing so, the full extent of what lies below opens before you, wider than you had taken in through the narrow frame of the quarter opening. It is an unbroken plain. That is what it is, taken whole, a continuous, uninterrupted surface of cloud extending in every direction the window allows you to see, without gap or absence, without any land or water visible beneath it, as though the world below has been replaced entirely by this quieter, more even thing, this slow-breathing surface that spreads itself, without hurry, to the place where the curve of the earth would eventually draw it out of sight. The surface is not quite still, or perhaps it is still, and what you perceive as motion is only the quality that very large things carry when they are resting, an almost imperceptible rise and fall, a slow undulation as of a tide that is not going anywhere in particular, only existing, only breathing, the way you yourself are breathing now, slowly, without effort. The light on the cloud's surface comes from below, which is a quiet strangeness, the moon above you sending its glow down into the cloud, and the cloud catching it and returning it upward in a softer, more diffuse form, so that the surface below carries its own faint luminescence, its own grey-silver glow, almost the colour of old pewter left near a low fire, warm without being warm, luminous without being bright. And above the cloud band, above the place where the cloud surface ends and the open air begins, there is a strip of sky you can just see through the upper edge of the window, a narrow band of it, and in that band the stars are dense beyond any counting or naming. More stars than you would have thought possible from down on the ground, packed so thickly into the dark that the darkness itself seems to be the thing between the stars rather than the other way around, a background that the stars have almost entirely overtaken. You let your eyes move slowly between the cloud surface and that band of sky above it, down to the silver-grey plain, slow and breathing, up to the dense and unnameable stars. Down again, without hurry, without any particular reason for looking one place and then the other, only the slow, easy movement of attention that needs no destination and carries no expectation. It is what it was a minute ago, an hour ago, the same single, sustained, low note, constant and steady, felt more than heard, a vibration in the frame of the aircraft that has become indistinguishable from the ambient presence of this place itself. And alongside it, so quiet you could almost imagine it rather than hear it, the faint breath of the air circulation system, a whisper, almost nothing, moving the air in the cabin so gradually it seems less like a mechanism than like the space itself exhaling, gently, over and over. You lean back very slightly from the window, returning to the full softness of the seat. The cloud plane is still there, still spreading below you, still carrying its quiet silver light. The stars remain in their dense band above the cloud line. The engine holds its note. The cabin around you is very still, and very dim and very close, and the cloud sea below goes on, unhurried, vast and breathing. Chapter 3. 4 hours out. You ease back from the window, very slowly, letting your shoulders settle into the seat again, letting the headrest receive the full weight of your head. And for a moment you simply rest there, not looking out and not looking in, just resting in the dim and quiet space between the glass and the aisle, between where you were and where you are now. 4 hours out from any shore. That is the fact of where you are, and it comes to you not as a thought that requires attending to, but as something softer than thought, a fact that settles the way a blanket settles when someone smooths it gently over a surface and lets it find its own weight. 4 hours from land in any direction. The cabin asleep around you. No turbulence has come, no announcement has come over the speakers in a very long time now. The call button above your seat holds its small amber glow, constant and unhurried, never requested, simply present. The engine note fills the space where any other thought might otherwise gather. It has been doing this since the moment you boarded, since the wheels lifted, and the city lights tilted and then disappeared below the cloud line. And it does it now with the same unwavering consistency, pressing softly and steadily against the inner edges of your awareness, the way a warm hand pressed flat against a surface holds steady and holds. You notice it less as a sound than you feel it as a presence. It comes through the soles of your feet where they rest against the carpet. It comes through the seat beneath you, a vibration too slow and too low to be felt as anything but warmth, a gathered hum moving through the frame of the fuselage all around you, constant and even, very close. From somewhere 2 rows back, you cannot be certain, only approximately you can hear the slow and even rhythm of someone sleeping. Breath in, unhurried. Long and settled pause. A breath out, even slower, and then the pause again, and the breath returning. You notice, without deciding to, that your own breath has begun to follow it in some approximate way, the way water follows a slight inclination downward, without any effort of its own, without choosing, only following. The vent above your seat releases its thin, cool breath across your cheekbone and the top of your shoulder, just cool enough to be felt, just cool enough to remind you how warm the blanket is where it lies across your lap, folded loosely and tucked at the sides, holding a quiet pool of warmth that has been slowly deepening since you first arranged it, an hour ago now, or longer. The time does not feel important to know, and so you do not try to know it. The cabin is dark, except for the soft ambient glow of the ceiling panels, a very low blue-white, the kind of light that suggests night rather than illuminating it, that shapes the dark rather than dissolving it. You are 4 hours from any shore. The engine holds its note without variation. There is nothing required of you here, nothing to attend to, no moment approaching that will ask anything of you. Only the seat and the warmth across your lap and the steady low sound filling the cabin around you and somewhere 2 rows back. The quiet and continuing rhythm of someone's slow and easy breath. Chapter 4. The even chord. The engine has been sounding for so long now that it has become something other than a sound. This is what you find when you truly attend to it, when you let your attention rest quietly against it, the way you might rest a hand against a warm wall just to feel what is there. That it has crossed some threshold and become instead a condition of the air itself, the way the temperature of a room becomes simply part of the room after you have been sitting in it long enough, unnoticed, not because it has gone away, but because it has become the ground beneath everything else. The given, the baseline. The engine note has done the same. You have been inside it for hours now, and you know this because when you try to find the edges of it, you cannot, any more than you could find the edge of warmth gathered in a closed and quiet room. When you choose to listen, really listen carefully, letting your attention lean very gently in the direction of the sound. It resolves into something you might call a chord, a single, even chord, low and without variation, without the kind of trembling that announces itself as urgency. It simply occupies the space. It fills the air from the carpet at your feet to the ceiling above you, from the bulkhead at the front of your row to the farthest reach of the cabin behind you. And it does not falter, and it does not rise, and it does not fall. You can feel it in the seat. Not only hear it, feel it as a quality of the material beneath you, in the wide base of the seat where your weight has settled most fully, a very fine and steady hum held in the fabric and the frame, too slow to be felt as movement, too constant to be felt as anything but a kind of warmth. And you can feel it in the bulkhead partition at your feet, that solid wall that marks the front of your section of the cabin, curved slightly, holding its shape without effort, humming in a way that seems to come from within the material rather than from any surface you could name or point to. It is the steadiest thing at this altitude, steadier than anything on the ground, with its small and constant adjustments, its shifting surfaces, its changes in the quality of the light from one moment to the next. Here there are none of those. Here there is only the chord, even and continuous, and the faint blue glow of the ceiling panels, a glow so low it barely functions as light, more a suggestion of the ceiling than an illumination of it, and the dim shapes of headrests in the rows behind you, still, each one a dark silhouette holding its place without movement. You let your eyes rest on those silhouettes for a moment, the curved tops of seats, the occasional pale shape of a pillow folded under someone's cheek, the deep and undisturbed dark between one row and the next. And then you let your gaze return to nothing in particular, resting unfocused on the faint blue suggestion of the ceiling, on the still and settled air of the cabin at this hour, at this altitude, at this point on the long, slow arc of the flight. The chord continues below everything. You feel it in the seat and in the soles of your feet and in the base of your ribs, where they have softened and settled and stopped doing any particular work. Somewhere beneath thought, somewhere below the level where decisions form, the body simply receives it. The hum, the warmth, the low and steady note that has been holding without interruption since the ground fell away. Chapter 5. The Pale Smear. The window holds you again. You turn back toward it without quite deciding to. Your eyes settle there the way water finds the lowest available place, drawn without effort and without urgency, and what you find when you arrive is that something has shifted while your attention was resting elsewhere, resting in the hum and the warmth and the slow, even rhythm of breath moving in and gently out. The moon has moved. Nothing at altitude ever moves visibly, but the evidence of it is there on the cloud surface below, which has brightened. Just slightly, almost not enough to name. From the flat matte grey it was before into something closer to silver. Diffuse and soft and without a single hard edge, the kind of light that does not cast shadows so much as suggest them, that lies across a surface the way a cold, still morning lies across a lake, everywhere at once and nowhere in particular, sourceless and even and undivided. And there, keeping pace with the aircraft, moving at exactly the speed of everything around you, is a pale smear on the silver-grey plain below. A shadow, faint as a watermark pressed into paper that has been dampened and left to dry, carrying the shape of the aircraft but loosely, the way shadows always simplify and soften what casts them. The wings are there, suggested. The long body is there, suggested. And it moves across the cloud surface the way clouds themselves move, which is to say, it appears entirely still, and then, when you look away for a moment and look back, you find it has shifted. Though you never quite see the moving itself, only the having moved, which is a different and gentler thing. You watch it without hurrying. There is nothing to hurry toward, and nothing to hurry from. The pale smear drifts, and the cloud surface turns slowly beneath it, and the moonlight falls through the window glass in a way that is cool without being cold. Filtered through several inches of thick acrylic until it arrives at your face as something softer than light, more like the memory of light, ambient and low and sourceless, settling across your cheek and the side of your hand resting against the armrest. The glass is faint and cool near your temple where you have leaned just slightly toward the window, and that coolness is mild and pleasant against the warmth of the cabin behind you. A quiet reminder that outside this pane the air is a cold almost too absolute to imagine, and that the glass is doing steady, unannounced work between you and that cold, holding it easily at a distance that does not require your attention, that does never require your attention, that will continue holding without you doing anything at all. The shadow on the clouds below continues to drift. It does not hurry. It moves not the way a vehicle moves, nothing as solid as that, but the way a reflection moves across still water, gliding, massless, carrying no weight at all, simply a pattern of less than moonlight pressed into the silver plane for as long as the angle of moon and aircraft and cloud allows. And you watch it the way you might watch the light from a distant lamp move slowly across a wall, without thinking about it, without asking what it means, simply receiving it as one more gentle and unremarkable thing happening in the quiet. And beneath everything, the engine hum continues. It has not changed. It is the same low, steady chord it has been since the ground fell away, and it holds now while the pale shadow drifts and the moonlight softens through the glass and the warmth of the cabin holds without effort, and the seat holds and the air holds, and you are here simply present in this small illuminated space, watching a shadow that does not quite belong to the night, and yet is perfectly and completely at home in it. Chapter 6. Stars without names. You tilt your head just a little. A gentle loosening of the neck, the kind of small adjustment the body makes in the last slow minutes before sleep, finding its own position without being told to. And now the window shows you the sky above the clouds rather than the cloud plane itself. The stars are everywhere up here, a field of them, a plane of cold light stretching from one edge of the window to the other, and continuing beyond where the glass ends, dense and perfectly still, and arranged in no pattern that demands anything of you. Each one is simply in its position, each exactly as bright as it is, and not brighter, none of them asking anything of you, none of them requiring that you locate them in a constellation, or name them, or measure the distance between one and the next, and you can let the field simply rest above you. Letting your gaze drift slowly from one small bright point to another, and then to another, and then to settle briefly somewhere in the dark between two of them, which is already further than most people ever look for. The glass is cool near your temple where you have tilted toward the window, and that faint coolness is clean and steady and not unpleasant, a thin reminder of the enormous cold on the other side of the pane, reduced by the thickness of the acrylic to something you can simply receive, the way you receive the engine hum and the warmth of the blanket, as one more quiet background quality of this enclosed space. The air inside the cabin is warm and still. The stars outside the glass are cold and still. Both conditions are simply what they are, both exactly as they should be, and you are in the warm interior looking out at the cold, and neither the warm nor the cold requires anything of you, and so you simply rest between them. Below, the cloud plane is there, silver gray and slow, and you do not need to look down at it to know it is there, persisting beneath the aircraft the way the hum persists beneath everything, steadily, without announcement, simply continuing. And the engine chord continues too, the same low, steady note it has been since the ground fell away. The same note it will be when the stars have slowly turned and the sky has begun to soften at one edge toward the first pale suggestion of something. Still hours from now, far beyond the reach of this moment. And between the cloud plain below and the star field above, you are suspended here, held in the space between two vast quiet surfaces, one of cloud and one of cold light, held in the dark and the hum with nothing required of you, nothing to decide or consider or attend to, simply present in the middle of a very large and very peaceful night. The stars do not move. The engine does not change. The coolness at your temple is steady and faint and still. And this arrangement, cloud below and stars above and hum beneath and warmth around, is already complete, entirely and quietly complete, the way a long slow exhale is complete, simply because it is happening and still happening. And the next breath when it comes will be the same, and the one after that the same, and the one after that, settling, softening, the hum continuing below, the stars continuing above, the night continuing all around. Chapter 7. The blankets wait. You ease back from the window, not drawing the shade, only letting the outside soften into the middle distance, the faint luminescence of cloud below, the darkened stars above. And as you settle back against the seat, your attention drifts inward, gently, toward what is nearest to you now, what is warm and already arranged, the weight of the blanket across your lap and thighs, the particular quiet of this seat, this row. The blanket lies across your thighs in an even, unhurried pressure, heavier than it seemed when you first arranged it over yourself, and warmer too, as though the fabric has been quietly gathering your warmth this whole time, and is only now returning it, steady and enclosed and just sufficient, nothing more. You are aware of the tops of your thighs beneath it, the warmth of your own body given back to you, and your hands rest along the edges of the blanket, fingers softly curved against the hem, the fabric smooth and a little nubbled where the weave crosses itself. And there is nothing required of your hands right now, except this, to rest along the edge, to be there without holding anything. The seat cushion gives beneath you in that particular way a well-used seat does, the foam pressing back just enough to hold you without resisting, conforming slightly to the shape of you, and in this row, the bulkhead row, with its few extra inches ahead, your legs can extend a little further than they could in the rows behind, your heels settling easily toward the floor, your knees uncrowded, the long muscles of your thighs and calves, somewhat more released than they have been, spreading gently outward and down, unrolling the way a thing unrolls when there is finally room enough for it to do so. From somewhere above, the small vent set into the bulkhead panel, there comes a faint current of cooler air drifting down across your face and the crown of your forehead, the kind of coolness that does not chill but only offers contrast, a soft difference between the warmth of the blanket below and the light air moving at your brow, so that you are held warm from the waist down and faintly cool above, and the balance of this is pleasant, uncomplicated, the kind of balance the body finds naturally when it is near rest. You breathe in, slowly, the breath filling the chest and then traveling lower, the belly lifting gently, and then the breath goes, and as it leaves it draws itself out a little longer than it arrived, as an exhale does when nothing is pressing on it. And then the breath comes again, filling the chest, the belly lifting, and it leaves again, and this time it is longer still, a little quieter, a little more settled at the end of it, and you are simply noticing this, not guiding it, not adjusting it, only observing the breath as something the body is doing by itself, because the body knows how. The blanket is still across your lap. Still warm, still weighted, still there. Your legs are loose in the extra room, The vent breathes faintly cool above you. The hum below is steady and low, and the breath goes in and comes out and goes in again. And you are here, entirely enclosed, and nothing requires you now, and the warmth holds. Chapter 8. The Pillow's Grain. The warmth is still with you, and your head settles into the small pillow, the rectangular one wedged between your cheek and the window frame, and beneath your skin you begin to feel the faint texture where there is nothing remarkable about this pillow. That is exactly what makes it right. Your head is heavier than you noticed before. The pillow receives the weight of it, compressing slightly, the foam giving in a soft and unhurried way, and the weight of your head is real and heavy, and it is being held, and you do not need to hold it yourself. You can let it rest entirely. Let the pillow do the holding, and your neck can be easy, and the muscles along the sides of your neck can soften by a small degree, and then by a small degree more, the weight dropping further, the pillow taking it all. You breathe in through your nose, slowly, the air coming in cool and then warming as it travels, and then the breath goes out, and the out-breath is longer than the in-breath was, longer and slower and quieter at the end of it. And that is simply what is happening, the body finding its own rhythm, the exhale arriving longer each time, the small pause at the end of it deepening, the next breath coming when it comes in its own time. The window beneath the pillow is faint and cool. The weave of the pillowcase is plain against your cheek. The blanket is warm across your lap. The hum continues below, even and unbroken, and outside the window, the cloud sea is still there, still soft and still, and the stars are still above it, and the night is continuing all around, and none of it requires you. You breathe in slowly and out longer. The cheek against the fine grain of the pillow pressed softly between the cheek and the glass, the window faintly cool at the very edge of it, the seat warm and holding, the blanket warm and weighted, and you breathe, and the breath goes out, and the hum is beneath everything, steady and low and ongoing, and your head is heavy and resting, and the weave of the pillow is familiar against your skin, and the breath comes, and it goes, and the next breath comes, and it goes, and the weave is there, and the warmth is there, and the warmth is there, and the warmth is there, and the hum is there, and the hum is there, and the night is there, all around and continuing, and quiet and slow, and the breath, and the warmth, and the dark beyond the glass, and the cloud below somewhere in the dark. Chapter 9. Breathing with the engines. The hum is still there, low and continuous and entirely without edge, and your breath is moving inside it now, the way a single soft tone moves inside a larger chord, not separate from it, not set apart from it, but held within it, belonging there without any effort on your part. You did not decide to slow your breathing. It happened the way the hum happened, the way the warmth of the blanket happened, quietly and on its own, in its own time, until you noticed it was already happening. A slow breath in, and then a long breath out, and the hum surrounding both. You notice this without reaching toward it, without deciding anything about it. The fingers have fallen loose, the palms turn gently upward, and the soft weight of the blanket has settled over them without any pressure, and the warmth beneath your hands is even and mild, and asks nothing of your hands, so your hands are simply doing nothing, resting open, and that is the right thing for them to do, to rest open and do nothing, to let the warmth hold your hands and the blanket hold the warmth, and the hum hold everything else. The breath comes in. It is not a large breath, it is a quiet breath, the kind the body draws without instruction, filling slowly and without hurry, the way a room fills with the first grey light before morning, gradually and without announcement, until you notice the light has simply arrived. The chest rises, gently, without effort. And then the breath goes out, slowly, and something goes with it. Not anything you are holding deliberately, but the ordinary faint weight of tension that lives in the shoulders and the chest and in the soft place just above the collarbone. and then the next breath comes in. Slowly in, the chest rising without effort, the air cool at the edges and then warm as it settles. And you are here, and the blanket is here, and the hum is here, and the breath is here. And out, slowly, the long soft out, and the shoulders ease a small amount more, and the hands stay open and resting, and the blanket stays soft and warm, and the engines hold their note, that low, even note that has been there since the beginning, and will go on being there long after you have stopped listening for it. And you are breathing inside it, and the breath is moving inside the hum, and neither of you is leading, and neither of you needs to. Your chest is softer now, softer than it was, and the breath moves through it easily, in and out, and the shoulders have settled a little more, and the space between your hands and the blanket is warm and still, and all of this is right, and all of this is quiet, and you are not watching any of it. You are simply here, breathing inside the hum, and the hum is breathing around you. The breath goes in, the breath goes out, slowly. The hum is low and even, and the faint vibration of it moves through the seat, through the blanket, through the very air of the cabin, and you are settled inside the vibration, and your chest rises inside it and falls inside it, and your hands rest open inside it. And the warmth is there, and the dark is there beyond the glass, and the breath comes in, and the breath goes out, and there is no hurry to any of it. None at all, and nothing is required, and the hum holds everything, and the warmth holds everything, and the hum continues, and the warmth holds everything, and the next breath goes out slowly, and the hum continues, and the warmth continues, and your hands are open on the blanket, loose and warm and resting, and slowly, quietly. Chapter 10. The cloud moves. Through the quarter-open shade, the cloud plane continues its slow drift, and you are aware of it without quite watching it. The cloud is there, below the glass, moving and not moving, the way something moves when it is very far away, which is to say barely at all, barely enough to name, a slow, imperceptible traveling that asks no attention from you, that goes on perfectly well without it. The moon is somewhere above the frame of the window, now above and out of sight, only its light remaining, falling from some invisible place above, and settling down onto the cloud surface far below, turning the tops of the clouds to a soft, even blue-gray, like the color of a room just before sleep, just before the last of the light goes. The cabin holds that same color now. A soft blue-gray wash across the blanket, across your hands resting open and still, across the small shelf below the window where nothing in particular sits. Everything gentle to the same unhurried tone, everything the same stillness. And the breath is there, moving in its own quiet time. And the cloud is there below the glass, drifting with that patient slowness that belongs to things very far away. The breath goes in and slowly out. The cloud moves and the hum holds, and the blue-gray light rests on everything. You are not watching the cloud carefully. Your eyes are soft, the shade half open and the glass beyond it dark, and the cloud somewhere below, all of that, all of it far and quiet and unhurried. The breath comes in and goes out, and the light on the blanket is the same light it was a moment ago, and the cloud is the same cloud, moving in the same patient way, and the hum is the same hum, low and continuous, and without any edge to it, and you are inside all of it, held inside the hum and the light and the slow drift far below, and nothing is changing that needs you to notice it. The breath in, and slowly out, the hum low and steady, the way it has always been steady. The blue-gray light across your hands and across the blanket, that soft, even tone, that same color it was before. The cloud below, drifting, without arriving anywhere, a breath in and out. The warmth of the blanket resting over your hands, over your arms, the soft weight of it, even and gentle and constant. The softness where your head rests. The hum, low and continuous, holding everything in its one low note, holding the seat and the warmth and the breath and the blue-gray light, holding all of it in that same unhurried steadiness, that same low note that has no beginning you can find and no end you need to look for. And the cloud is below somewhere in the dark beyond the glass, drifting without any hurry, and the breath goes out slowly, and the hum continues, and the blue-gray light is still there on the blanket, on your hands, on the small still air of the cabin. The breath, the hum, the cloud below, drifting in the dark beyond the glass. The blue-gray light, soft and even across everything. The warmth of the blanket where your hands are resting, open and still. The hum, low and continuous, the breath going out. The cloud, somewhere below in the dark, moving in that slow, patient way, and the hum and the breath and the warmth and the blue-gray light, and the breath going out slowly, and the hum continuing, and the dark beyond the glass, and the cloud somewhere below it, and the breath. Chapter 11. A blue glow. The ceiling above you holds a soft, even blue. Not a blue that announces itself or asks to be looked at, but a blue that simply fills the overhead space the way warmth fills a room, evenly, without edges, settling down across the seats and the blankets and the still open hands of passengers without asking anything of any of them. Your eyes have found it, or perhaps they arrived there on their own, drifting upward when the window no longer needed them. When the faint pale luminescence at the very edge of the window shade told you quietly, without insisting, that the cloud was still somewhere below in the dark, still moving in its patient, slow way, and that was enough. And your eyes were free to travel upward into the blue and simply rest there, softly receiving. The breath comes in and moves out again, and the blue on the ceiling holds. It does not shift. It does not deepen toward one corner or lighten toward another. It is the same quality of soft light from one end of the overhead panels to the other, a wash so even it has almost no texture at all, and your eyes do not search it for detail, because there is no detail to find here, only the blue steady above you, and the slow rise of your chest, and then, more slowly still, the gentle settling of it. From 2 rows back, someone breathes. The sound arrives without interrupting anything. A long, slow breath inward, a longer breath outward, and then that still place between them, the pause the body reaches on its own without being told, where nothing is required and nothing moves, and then the slow breath in again. You are not following it. You are only receiving it the way you receive the hum of the engines, as part of the air around you, part of the texture of this hour, this low blue room above the cloud. Your own breath finds its own tempo alongside it. Quieter now, quieter. Moving in and resting, and then out and resting in its own still pause. The pause a little wider than it was an hour ago, more spacious, a place you do not hurry through but simply inhabit. The air circulation passes somewhere above the panels, a low whispered sound, barely distinguishable from the engine note itself, barely separate from the quality of quiet that has settled over the cabin at this hour, when the lights have been low for a long while, and the blankets are up and the bodies have grown heavier in their seats, having given up the small held tensions of earlier, without noticing the moment they went. Your hands are open where they rest. Your shoulders have released whatever they were carrying. The breath moves out of you, and the blue holds above you, steady and soft, asking nothing. The edge of the window shade still carries that faint pallor. The cloud below, still there, still moving in its slow way, patient and indifferent to the hour or the altitude or the breathing going on in the rows above it. You do not need to look. You know it is there the way you know your own warmth, without attending, simply knowing. The blue above is enough. The breath going slowly out is enough. The low even hum is enough, the same hum it has always been, and the breath coming in, slowly, and going out, slowly, and the blue on the ceiling, unchanged, holding, unchanged. Your chest rises, and then settles, and the rise is smaller than before, gentler than before, as though the body has learned to need only what is enough. The slow breath in, and the slow breath out, and the rest between them growing a little wider each time, a little more like stillness than like waiting. And the blue holds above, and the hum holds beneath, and the breath from 2 rows back comes and goes in its own quiet time. Barely audible now, nearly part of the silence around it, and your own breath going out slowly, and the blue, soft and even, holding there in the dark. Chapter 12. Still flying. The plane moves through the dark. That is the simple fact of this hour. The plane is moving, has been moving, will go on moving through the long night above the cloud and below the stars, carrying everyone in it through the air. And nothing is required of you in relation to this movement except to be carried by it, the way you have been carried, the way you are being carried now, the blanket warm across your lap, the seat soft at your back, the breath going in and out without needing to be directed, without asking for anything at all. The cloud is below, somewhere below the floor of the aircraft, below the long dark distance between here and wherever the surface of things is, silver gray and slow, continuous and unhurried, moving in that patient way it has moved all night. There may be the faintest suggestion of it at the very edge of the window shade, that pale reflected quality, but your eyes are not seeking it. It is enough to know the cloud is there, the way it is enough to know the engines are there, not by attending to them, but by feeling them, the low continuous hum running through the seat beneath you and the floor and the blanket and the slow breath, one held note beneath everything, holding, the stars are above, cold and numerous and asking nothing of the dark around them, and you are somewhere between them and the cloud, in that narrow band of night where the air outside the window is colder than anything the cabin holds, and the cabin holds its warmth so quietly and completely that you barely have to think about it. It is simply there, around your hands, in the stillness of the air above the blanket, and the breath moves through it, in and out, so slowly now, so small, and even and slow. The engine holds its note. The note that has been there since before the lights went down, low and continuous. The foundation beneath every other sound, beneath the breathing and the blue and the warmth of the blanket, all of it resting on that one long hum, and the breath rests on it too, moving in and then out and then resting in the quiet place between, and the hum holds, and the breath holds, and the warmth holds. In and out. The blanket is warm where it lies across your hands. The weight of your body has settled fully into the seat now, into the night, into the particular heaviness that arrives only when the body has let everything go, and there is nothing left to hold, and nothing that needs holding. The breath comes in, so slowly, and moves out, more slowly still. And the rest between is wide and warm and unhurried, and the cloud is below in the dark, patient and slow, and the stars are above, cold and still and asking nothing, and the engine holds its note, unchanged, and the breath goes out, slowly, and the warmth of the blanket, and the blue barely there at the ceiling, soft, and the breath going out, slowly. The hum of the engines has been with you so long now that it has become part of the quiet itself, woven into the air of the cabin, into the warmth, into the breath going in and out and resting and going in again, slowly, the body at rest on the sound, the way it rests on the seat, entirely without effort, the chest rising and then settling, and the pause between warm and wide and still, the plane still flying. The breath going out, the hum, the warmth, the blue, the breath going out slowly, and the dark and the cloud somewhere below it, moving, and the breath. And somewhere in that stillness, the blue softens further, and the cloud below grows quieter still, and the hum holds you the way low, even warmth holds you, not pulling, not asking anything, only continuing, only carrying you forward through the dark above the world. You feel yourself drifting, your breath going with you, the last of the blue dissolving into something softer, something without edges or color at all. And when you open your eyes, it is to darkness, a deep, complete, untroubled darkness, and the oval of the window beside you holds only that, only the dark and the long, slow interval of a red light somewhere out on the wing, pulsing once quietly, and then resting, and then once again, patient and unhurried, like a breath, like your breath, settling now into the reclined seat, the blanket drawn up to your chin, the tray table folded away, everything already still. Chapter 1. The Dark Oval. You are already here, already settled, the night flight already deep into its crossing, and the oval window beside you holds nothing but darkness. But the glass might as well be painted black, might as well be a wall, except that it is not a wall. It is only the Atlantic far below, and the sky above and the night pressing gently on every side of the aircraft as it carries you west through the hours. The blanket is already drawn up to your chin, the way it always finds itself at this point in a long flight, when the cabin has grown cool enough, and you have been still long enough that the warmth beneath it has become its own small enclosed weather, soft and consistent against your chest and shoulders, and you did not have to think about drawing it up. Your hands simply did it some time earlier, some quiet version of yourself arranging things while the rest of you was already drifting. The seat is already reclined to its shallow angle, not flat, not upright, but somewhere between, that gentle tilt that takes the weight from your lower back and lets your head settle into the pillow, and you are aware of the slight pressure of it against the back of your skull, the way the foam has accepted your particular shape over the last several hours, warmed and softened to you. And outside the oval window, nothing. The darkness is total. No cloud visible, no horizon, no scatter of light from a distant coast. Only black, only the night, and then it is. The slow pulse of the red wingtip beacon, appearing and disappearing and appearing again, once every few seconds, patient and unhurried, like a lighthouse set adrift somewhere above the ocean, tending to no shore in particular, only marking itself present in all that dark. You watch the beacon return. It is the only thing visible in the world beyond the glass. It appears red and soft, and then it is gone again, and the darkness closes completely behind it, and you wait, without urgency, without anything, for it to come back, and it does. It always does. Red and slow and patient, it comes back, and then it goes again. The window is cool near the frame if you were to reach out and touch it, though you do not reach out. Your hands are beneath the blanket, resting at your sides, and there is no reason to move them. The blanket holds its warmth, the seat holds its angle. The beacon continues its slow, steady keeping of time in the dark, indifferent to whether you watch it or not, returning all the same. There is nothing required of you out there. There is nothing required of you in here. The flight continues without your help, the engines carrying you forward at their own steady pace, the crew moving quietly somewhere at the edges of the cabin, and you are already as settled as you need to be. The blanket already at your chin, the window already dark, the beacon already returning, slow and red and soft, once every few seconds, out there in the night above the Atlantic. Chapter 2. The engine chord. You become aware of the sound gradually, the way you become aware of your own breathing when you've been quiet long enough. Not because it has changed, but because everything else has gone sufficiently still that this sound, which was always there, begins to surface. The engines. Their note fills the entire cabin, fills every register from low to high, a chord so broad and so constant that your ears have long since stopped calling it sound and filed it away as background, as the texture of the air itself, as the particular quality of silence that this aircraft produces. It is not a silence, but it has become one. That is the thing you notice now, turning your attention toward it gently. The way you might turn a stone over, just to see what is beneath. Not searching for anything, only curious in the mildest sense, curious in the way you can only be when you have nowhere to be and nothing to do. The engines have been running for hours. They will run for hours more. Their note does not vary, does not climb or descend, does not announce anything. It simply continues, patient and enormous, beneath everything. The cabin around you is dim. The overhead panels give off a very soft amber, the color of old paper, not quite warm but not harsh either. Just enough light to see the shapes of the rows ahead of you, the rounded heads of other passengers tucked into their pillows, the occasional fold of a blanket, the glint of an armrest. Or close enough to still that the differences do not matter. A small shift, a slow adjustment, the way sleeping things move without waking. The cabin holds all of it gently, the rows and the dim amber light and the shapes of all these people crossing the same ocean, going the same direction, breathing in the same recycled air. The air itself has a particular quality on a long flight, slightly dry, faintly neutral, carrying only the lightest traces of anything. It fills your chest, unhurried. The blanket rises very slightly and falls. In the rows ahead, the nearest passenger has a blanket of their own, a dark shape in the amber-lit dimness, their head turned toward the aisle, their breathing invisible at this distance but present somehow, another rhythm layered beneath the engine chord, and the engines continue. They have not changed. The chord they produce is the same chord that was there when you boarded, the same chord that was there when the light dimmed and the passengers settled, the same chord that has been running underneath every thought you have had since the wheels left the ground. It is not separate from the silence. It is the silence, the particular silence of this crossing, of this aircraft, of this long arc across the water in the dark. You settle a little more into the seat. The blanket is at your chin. The amber panels glow softly above the rows. Somewhere in the distance of the chord, somewhere in its lowest registers, there is something almost like warmth. Not warmth exactly, but the suggestion of it, the steady and unbroken quality of something that has been running a long time and will continue to run, patient and complete, for as long as you are here. Chapter 3. The Returning Light. Outside the oval window, just beyond the place where the cabin's soft amber no longer reaches, there is a light, a small red point at the very tip of the wing, pulsing slowly and evenly in the dark above the ocean. And you have not been watching it exactly, not with any intention, but now that your attention has found it, it is easier to stay with than to leave. The wing itself is barely visible. It is more a shape suggested by the absence of stars, a dark and solid, something extending from below the oval frame out into more darkness, and then the darkness deepens until there is nothing left to find. But the light is there at its far edge, reliable and unhurried, appearing and then softening away and then appearing again, at an interval gentle enough to breathe into, long enough to let the breath settle between one return and the next. You notice, not deciding to, simply noticing, the way you notice things when the mind has grown quiet and there is nothing pressing, that as the light fades, your breath goes out with it. Somewhere in the warmth of your chest, the exhale releases, slow and without being asked, as the red point softens back into the dark. And then there is a pause, a still and easy pause, neither long nor short, simply itself. And the light returns, and the breath comes back in, quietly, without effort, the way breath always returns when there is nothing asking it to hurry. The window is cool near your cheek. You are aware of it only faintly, as a quality of the air just at the edge of the blanket, not uncomfortable, simply present, a reminder of the dark and cold beyond the glass while everything on your side of it stays warm and enclosed. The blanket is at your chin. The amber panels above the rose glow in their low and even way, unchanged, unhurrying. The sound of the aircraft continues beneath everything, that low and constant resonance that has been running since long before you stopped thinking about it. Patient and whole and unbroken, the red light returns, and softens, and returns again. There is something in the rhythm of it, something in the simple faithfulness of that interval, the way the light appears without variation, without urgency, without meaning anything more than its own returning, that is easier to follow than any thought. Thoughts want something from you. They want to be continued, resolved, followed somewhere. The light wants nothing. It comes back, and that is enough, and you are welcome to watch or to let your gaze go soft and simply feel the rhythm without quite seeing it at all. Your breath moves with it or near it in its own loose and gentle way. The timing is never exact, and it does not need to be. The pulse sets a kind of measure, and the breath finds its own version of that measure, slower and less defined, the way water follows the contour of a vessel without trying, settling naturally into whatever space it is given. Outside, the ocean is there below the clouds, though there is nothing to see. Miles of cold, dark water, and above it the wing holds its angle without effort, and at its tip the small light pulses and softens and pulses again. You are watching, or nearly watching, with the kind of attention that has grown soft at its edges, the open, unfocused noticing that comes when the body is warm and still, and the mind has found something easy to rest on. The light returns. Your breath goes out. There is nowhere this is going. There is only the returning, and the going, and the returning again, slow and even and reliable as the long, dark arc of this night above the ocean. Chapter 4. The frame beneath. It has been there all along, you realize now. this vibration traveling up through the floor of the aircraft and through the metal and foam of the seat frame and into the body, quiet and continuous and so familiar by now that it stopped registering some time ago and simply became part of the air around you. You have been resting in it without knowing you were resting in it, and noticing it now does not change anything, only makes visible something that was already and has always been present. You feel it in the backs of your thighs, where the cushion makes contact with the legs. Fine, even trembling, not a shaking, nothing as coarse as that, more like the deepest register of the engines finding its way through every solid surface and arriving, very faintly, at the skin. It is warm, in the way that a surface in long contact with a body takes on something of that warmth. The cushion beneath you has been here, holding the weight of you for long enough now that the boundary between what is seat and what is you has begun to soften at its edges, to become less distinct, less interesting to the body than it was at the beginning of this night. There is the same resonance in the base of the pelvis, in the tailbone where it rests against the curved back of the seat, a vibration so fine it is almost a warmth, almost a sound. And yet it is neither exactly, it is its own thing, a continuous and patient presence that has no beginning you can locate and will have no end that you will notice. It was running before you thought about it. It will go on running long after you have stopped thinking about anything at all. Your hand rests on the armrest. You notice it now only because something in your attention has grown quiet enough to find small things. The faint trembling in the fingertips where they lie against the narrow surface, barely perceptible, the kind of sensation that would be entirely lost if anything louder were happening. But in this quietness it is simply there, available, a small and steady reminder that you are held by something solid and in motion. The aircraft carries you. That is the whole of it. The floor beneath the seat beneath the body settled into its particular arrangement of warmth and contact and supported weight. None of it asks anything of you. You are not holding yourself in place. The structure takes the weight, and the engines take the distance, and the dark air holds the wings, and the body receives all of this without participating, carried the way something very light is carried on slow and moving water, without intention, without effort, simply resting in the motion that was already there when you arrived. You become aware, slowly and without searching for it, of the different places where the body rests against the seat, the backs of the knees where the cushion curves up to meet them, the small of the back where it has settled by now into its own quiet arrangement, the shoulders sunk a little into the fabric, easy there, heavy in the good way that warmth makes things heavy. Each point of contact is warm. Each has been warm for longer than you have been counting. The vibration continues beneath all of it, fine and even and without interruption, carrying you through the dark as quietly as it has been carrying you all this long way already. Chapter 5. The Weight of Wool. The blanket lies across the chest with a weight you have stopped noticing, and then, as your attention settles there now, you notice it again, and it is exactly right, not heavy, only present. The way a hand resting very gently on a shoulder is present. Not a burden, not a pressure, only an acknowledgement of where you are, a warmth and a slight hold that says, quietly, you are here, you are still, you are safe. The wool has absorbed the heat of the body beneath it. Your heat, accumulated over the last hour or longer, or perhaps longer than that now, as time has grown soft and approximate here in the cabin dark. And what lies against the chest is not the blanket's own temperature, but yours returned to you, mild and steady. You breathe in, slowly, and the wool shifts with the sternum's rise, almost imperceptibly, a small giving and then a small returning as the breath releases and the chest settles again, and the blanket follows, and you breathe again, and it follows again, and this small exchange has been happening for some time without your awareness of it. The texture of the wool, where the edge has folded back a little near the throat, is soft in the particular way of things that have been handled often and gently. Not coarse, not new, but softened at the surface, each fiber lying close to the next in a way that holds warmth without effort. Your hands, if you moved them, would find the hem of it, the stitched border, the slight ridge there. But there is no reason to move them. They are warm where they are, easy against the sides of the thighs, and moving them would only be a reason to notice that you could. The shoulders are sinking, very slowly, into the seat back. This has been happening without instruction. The gradual release of whatever the shoulders hold when they are asked to hold nothing. The slow lowering that warmth and stillness bring about on their own, without effort, without your deciding. You exhale, and the chest beneath the blanket softens. The sternum lowers a little more than it rose. The shoulders sink a little further, easy and heavy in the good way, the way that warmth makes things heavy. The weight of the wool is there through all of it, steady, familiar, like something that has always been there. Lower, the feet are tucked into their own warmth below. The blanket has covered them too, you remember now. You tucked it down there when you first arranged yourself, folding the hem under slightly, and the feet have been warm since then, in their particular quiet warmth, and they do not need anything. The ankles rest easily, the calves are loose. There is no tension anywhere in the lower body that has not already been let go of, not now, not with this much warmth and time and stillness all working in the same direction, unhurried, the same direction as sleep. The blanket rises very slightly with the next breath, and settles again with the next release, and rises and settles. The wool holds its warmth. The chest softens with each exhale, a little more, a little further, until the softening and the breathing are almost the same thing, almost indistinguishable from each other, both moving in the same long, slow, undemanding rhythm that the body has kept all night without your attending to it, without needing anything from you at all. The weight of the wool, the warmth beneath it, the slow, untroubled rise and fall. Chapter 6. The Invisible Waypoint. Somewhere below, and many thousands of feet below at that, the Atlantic moves in its own time and darkness, unmeasured out here, unlit, vast in the particular way that things are vast when they are simply too large to hold as a single thought. You do not need to picture it. It is there the way depth is there, present, real, and requiring nothing of you. The engine note is what you have been listening to without quite listening for hours now. A steady, even chord that fills the cabin the way a low tone fills a room. Not quite sound, not quite not sound, something between the two that the body learns after a while to treat as silence. It is there beneath the hum of the ventilation, beneath the faint whisper of recycled air that moves past the oval window beside you, beneath the long and settled quiet of the cabin in its dark. And then, so slightly that you are not certain for a moment, whether you heard it or imagined it. A fractional thinning, a small change in the chord's quality, as though one harmonic among many has been lifted or softened, and then returned, the autopilot making its small and unhurried calculation and adjusting, and the note thickens again, returns to exactly what it was before, and the plane continues as it was continuing, and the moment has already passed, and you are not certain it happened at all. This is what crossing a waypoint sounds like at cruising altitude. Not a landmark, not a place, only a 5-letter name assigned to a point of sky. A coordinate that exists in the flight computer somewhere ahead of you in the dark cockpit, and the aircraft knew it was coming for hours and made its quiet correction and moved on. The ocean below does not mark it. The darkness outside the oval window remains complete, and the glass itself, where you might lay a fingertip against it, would be cool to the touch, faintly cool, the cold of the outer air held just on the other side of it, though you do not lay a fingertip there now. It has been steady for some time now, long enough that the brief change has already become uncertain in memory, already soft and indistinct, and what remains is only the note itself, even and low, filling the base of everything the way it has filled it all night. The seat presses up through the cushion against the back and the legs and the low curve of the spine, gently, steadily, the way it has pressed all this long way. The blanket across the chest holds its warmth. The cabin has been this temperature for a long time, and nothing in it has changed except the crossing of a line that was never visible, never real in any way that the body could feel. The ocean continues below in its own darkness. It is neither cold nor frightening to consider, only vast, only still in the way that things are still when they are so large that the ordinary measure of stillness does not quite reach them. The plane holds its altitude, the note holds its pitch. The dark outside the window is complete and absolute and exactly the right kind of dark, the kind that asks nothing of you, the kind that simply continues, unhurried, for as long as the night continues, which is still a long time, which is the whole of the remaining sky before morning comes, faintly, somewhere ahead on the horizon that you are not watching and do not need to watch, which is enough. Somewhere in the settling quiet, you notice it first as a kind of warmth, not the warmth of the cabin air which has been there all along, but something softer than that. Everything else, the legs loose under the blanket, the hands folded together in your lap, the back resting against the seat with its thin, familiar give, has already made its peace with the darkness and the altitude and the low hum of the engines that has been running beneath everything like a single sustained note someone forgot to end. But the shoulders have been up around the ears this whole while, and you have not noticed, because this is what shoulders do. This is where they have learned to live, held against something that stopped requiring bracing a long time ago, somewhere above the clouds when the last lights of land fell away and the dark outside the oval window became complete. And now, in this particular quiet, the quiet of the seat and the blanket and the oval window beside you with its darkness, its faithfully continuing darkness, you become aware of them. Not urgently. Simply the way you become aware of something that has been in the room all along, once the light shifts enough to see it. The shoulders are up, and they do not need to be. They drop slowly. Not because you have asked them to, exactly, but because the awareness itself is enough. Because the body, when it is finally shown the thing it is holding, tends to release it on its own, the way a hand opens around something it was carrying when it finally reaches the place it was carrying it to. They drop, and then they drop a little further than you expected, and then further still, and then a little further even than that, as though there were more to release than you thought, as though the held tension had layers you had not known about until this moment of letting go. The neck lengthens quietly, almost of its own accord. There is a small change at the back of the skull against the headrest, a settling, a finding of the exact right place, and the headrest is exactly where it needs to be and has been all along, waiting in the same steady way the darkness outside has been waiting, unhurried, with nothing to do but hold. The jaw softens now, too. It had been holding, not clenched. Nothing as definite as clenched, only slightly more gathered than it needed to be, the way a hand rests slightly curled even when it is resting. The back teeth part a little. The muscles around the hinge of the jaw go quiet in a way they rarely go quiet during waking hours, and the face, which had been keeping its familiar shape through some long-held arrangement of small intentions, becomes simply a face at rest. The forehead smooths, the skin along the temples releases softly without a vent. The eyes behind their closed lids, which had been doing nothing at all, somehow manage to do even less. The blanket is at your chin. The headrest is warm against the back of your skull. The engines below continue their note, even, undemanding, the same note they have held across all this dark water. And the oval window beside you gives back nothing but the night, which is still there, still continuing, still exactly the same complete and quiet dark it has been since the coast fell away hours ago. Your shoulders are where they are, lower than they were. Your neck is longer than it was. The back of your head rests where it needs to rest, and the headrest is warm, and the note of the engines is the same note it has always been. Chapter 8. The rib cage settles. The breath finds its way down. Not a deep breath, not a deliberate breath, not a breath you have chosen to take differently, only the next breath after the one before it, slipping a little lower than the last one did, settling into the chest as the chest settles, finding the floor of the rib cage the way water finds the lowest part of a room. You may not have noticed until now that the rib cage has been sitting slightly higher than it needed to. Not much higher, only a little, the way a room is kept when guests are expected, with everything held just above its natural resting level. The intercostal muscles, the small ones between each rib, have been maintaining that level quietly this whole time, keeping a small reserve of tension the way a careful person keeps a small amount in a pocket they have forgotten about, against a need that never came. And now, on the next exhale, the exhale that arrives on its own, that you do not need to make happen, the rib cage drops. It drops further on the out-breath than it rose on the in-breath, and for a moment there is less chest than there was before, less height to the whole front of the torso. And this is not a collapse, not a losing of anything, but an arrival, the body finding the level it was always meant to rest at, the level that was waiting just underneath the level it has been occupying. The blanket moves with it. You may feel the blanket against your sternum shift as the chest settles beneath it. Only a little, only the small new weight of the blanket finding the new geography of what it is covering. And the blanket is warm, and its weight stays where it is, and the sternum rests below it, and the breath comes and goes beneath the warmth of the blanket, and each breath that comes is a little quieter than the one before. Slower now. The breathing has become slower without you having to ask it to, because when the chest is settled there is less work in each breath. The bellows are a little wider and a little more at ease, and the air goes further with less effort, and the space between breaths lengthens almost without your noticing, the pause between the out-breath and the in-breath growing by a fraction of a second, and then by a little more. Outside the oval window, the red light at the wingtip pulses. You do not need to look at it to know it is there. It has been there the whole time, marking the same slow rhythm. It has been marking since before you close your eyes, red and then dark and then red again, faithful and unhurried, counting the night in its own patient way, keeping its own time. Your chest rises a little with the in-breath, falls with the out-breath, a little lower than it rose, the blanket falling with it, warm and even and slow, red and then dark, breath in and breath out, the rib cage resting now where it belongs, lower and wider and quieter than before, and the engine note beneath you continuing its long, unbroken note, and the dark beyond the window, and the blanket at your chin, which is warm, which has always been warm, which is warm still, and will be warm for as long as there is night left above the ocean. Chapter 9. Hands and Feet. Your hands are still now, wherever they have come to rest, perhaps folded together on top of the blanket, fingers loosely overlapping, or perhaps tucked beneath the edge of it where the warmth collects most deeply, or simply lying open at your sides with the palms turned softly upward in the way that hands sometimes arrive of their own accord when the body has grown very nearly ready to release the last of what it has been carrying. It does not matter where they are exactly. What matters is only that they have found their place, and that they are quiet there, and that there is nothing left at this hour for them to do. There is a particular kind of heaviness that moves into the hands at the very edge of sleep, and you may begin to feel it now, a soft gathered weight settling at the base of each finger, at each knuckle, a loosening of the small habitual tension that the hands carry through all the hours of the day without knowing they are carrying it, and then that loosening spreading gradually inward through the palm, through the heel of the hand, and the fingers, one by one and all of them together, uncurling just slightly more than they were a moment ago, lying open in the way that hands do when they are holding nothing at all, and need to hold nothing at all. This is not the heaviness of tiredness. It is something else, something closer to completion, as though the hands have finished everything they were asked to do and have set the last of it down without ceremony, without fuss. Simply set it down and become themselves again, warm and still and without agenda. The warmth of the blanket is where the hands are, or the warmth of the hands is where the blanket is. It has become pleasantly difficult to say which is which. The hands warming the fabric, or the fabric warming the hands, all of it merging into one even and soft warmth that extends from the fingertips back through the palms and into the wrists and along the forearms, warm all the way, warm without effort. And far below, in the dimmer and more distant part of this body that is resting, your feet have grown quiet too, tucked forward toward the seat in front of you, the toes softening and relaxing slightly apart from one another in the warm dark inside their covering. The arches of the feet releasing a tension that had been there for so many hours, you had long since stopped being aware of it. The ankles softening, the heels settling into whatever holds them, and the very long line of the body from the back of the skull to the soles of the feet is now simply resting. From one end to the other, not waiting for anything, not bracing for anything, not preparing itself for what comes next, only here in this warmth. The engine holds its note below you. The air in the cabin is still. The blanket is the same weight it has always been tonight, and the window is dark beside you, and your hands are where they are, heavy and warm, and your feet are where they are, soft and still, and the whole arrangement of the body has arrived somewhere it could not quite reach before, a completion that is also a letting go, a rest that is also a homecoming, warm and quiet and without any further requirement. Chapter 10. The Pulse and the Hum. The red light is at the edge of the window again, appearing there at the very margin where the glass meets the dark, a slow and even pulse of red that comes and holds for a moment, and then releases quietly back into the darkness. And then, after a long interval in which the dark is simply dark, it comes again, patient and unhurried as something that has always existed at this interval and always will, something that has been pulsing through many nights before this one, and will go on pulsing through many nights after. There, and then not there, and then there once more, at its long, slow rhythm, moving at the pace of something that has never once needed to hurry. The engine hums beneath you. It has been humming all through this night, and you have stopped hearing it in the way you hear a sound. It has become instead part of the texture of the dark itself, part of the feeling of the cabin around you, blending now into the low interior sound of the body, the quiet movement of the blood through the chest and the limbs, the soft and almost imperceptible rise and fall of the breath, all of it resolving into one continuous low warm note that belongs equally to the aircraft and to you, to the mechanical and to the living, to the outside and to the inside, and to the inside and to the inside and to the inside, until there is no particular reason to distinguish between them. It is simply the hum of this night. It is the sound this high, dark space makes when nothing at all needs to happen inside it. Your breath comes in, very slowly, the chest barely lifting beneath the blanket barely shifting, and then your breath goes out again, even more slowly than it came in, and the body settles just a little lower on the out-breath, as it has been settling for a long while now, and then the breath comes in again, soft and unhurried, and the breath goes out again, and the rhythm of this has become the ground beneath everything else, the thing that continues without your attention, without your direction, the breath simply breathing itself while the rest of you are attraction, the breath simply breathing itself while the rest of you drifts towards somewhere slightly warmer and further away than the seat. You are between things now, between the seat and wherever it is that the body goes when it is no longer quite here, not absent, not gone, but in the thin, warm passage between waking and the other place, the place where the hands are heavy and the feet are soft and the breath is long, and there is no particular edge between the engine's hum and the body's own quietness, no particular edge between the dark outside the window and the dark inside the closed eyes, no particular edge between the warmth of the blanket and the warmth that comes from somewhere deeper in. The blanket is warm at your chin. The window is dark. Somewhere a very long way below, the ocean moves through the night as it has always moved, not needing anything from you. And the hum continues, the long, low note of the engine and the blood and the breath, all of it together. And the red light comes once more at the edge of the glass, patient, slow, returning in its own long time, and the breath goes out and in very slowly and out. And there is only the warmth and the dark and the hum and the breath, slower now, softer now, and the blanket at the chin, and the long, quiet, dark. Chapter 11. Only weight. There is the weight of the blanket across your chest. And it is, for a moment, the only thing, the only sensation that arrives with any clarity, this soft and even pressure that has been there all along, and that you are only now feeling fully, the way you feel something only when the rest of the world has grown quiet enough around it to let it through. And the weight is warm, and the warmth is the same thing as the weight, and between the two of them there is no difference anymore, only a single quality, the quality of something pressing gently and completely, and the bones beneath settling into it, settling further, and the seat beneath the bones settling too, and all of it pressing softly and completely down into the dark. And the hum is still here. The low and constant note of the engine somewhere far below, the sound that is not quite a sound anymore, but a feeling, a fine vibration that lives in the chest alongside the breath, in the breastbone, in the spine, in the long bones of the legs that lie heavy and still beneath the blanket, and you do not hear it now so much as feel it, the way you feel your own pulse, which is also here, slow and soft and barely itself, slow and soft at the wrists, at the throat, in the quiet places where blood moves through the body, without asking anything of you, without requiring anything at all, without the weight of the blanket, the warmth beneath it, the hum in the chest and in the bones, the pulse at the wrists slow and the breath slower. And the red light comes back at the edge of the oval window, out there in the dark above the dark Atlantic, arriving in its long and patient time, and then fading again into the black, and you do not look for it, you do not wait for it. And yet when it comes, it is simply there, and when it fades, the dark is the same dark it was before, and the hum is the same hum, and the weight of the blanket has not changed, and the warmth under it has not changed, and the body beneath all of it is very heavy, heavier than it was a moment ago, heavier than it was a moment ago, heavier than it was a moment ago, heavier than it was been in some time, heavier in the way that comes only when the muscles have put down what they did not know they were still carrying without meaning to carry. There is a heaviness that is different from tiredness, and this is that kind, the kind where the arms are no longer holding themselves, where the shoulders have stopped keeping anything in place, where even the small muscles behind the eyes have softened and quietly let go. And you feel this not as something happening, but as the absence of something that had been happening without your knowing it. A small and quiet giving way, a surrender so gentle it has no name. The warmth, and the weight, and the hum beneath the warmth and the weight. And the breath rising, barely, the smallest rise, and falling, a smaller fall, and the chest beneath the blanket moving so slightly, the breath finding its slow way without any help from you, without any instruction, simply continuing as it has always continued, in and out and in again, very slowly, very softly, slower now than before. The weight of the blanket across the chest, and the warmth under it, and the hum, and the pulse, slow and soft, and the breath, and the weight again, the same weight, and the warmth, the same warmth, here and soft and pressing you gently, pressing you completely down into the dark. Chapter 12. The Atlantic Dark. The red light, it comes back at the edge of the oval window, softly, in its long, slow time, and fades again into the black beyond the glass, and the warmth is still here. The warmth has not changed, and the hum is still here, the same low note beneath everything, and the breath goes out, and does not hurry back. In, barely, and then out again, the smallest breath, the body taking only what it needs and nothing more. And somewhere below, far below the dark oval of the window and the cold air between here and the water, the Atlantic is moving in its slow way, the long swells rolling in the dark without any moon to show them, the ocean neither waiting nor arriving, only moving as it has always moved, as it was moving before the aircraft came into the dark above it, and will be moving long after, and from this height it is only the dark beneath the dark, the deep and quiet below the hum and the warmth, and none of it reaches you here, not the cold of it, not the distance of it, only the warmth reaches you here, not the cold of it, not the distance of it, only the blanket across the chest and the hum in the bones and the seat beneath you, here. And the red light comes back, patient as it has always been, returning at its long and measured interval, and the body does not register it as light anymore, or does not entirely, only as interval, as the soft count of something that has always been counting, that was counting before you arrived in the seat and before the blanket came to the chin and before the hum entered the bones and became indistinguishable from the night itself. And it will keep its count over the dark Atlantic, in the high cold dark where the autopilot makes its small quiet corrections and the stars move slowly above the thin cloud, very distant, very cold, and the ocean continues below without continuing. The breath goes out, and does not hurry back, in, very slowly, and out. The seat is here, and the blanket is warm, and the hum is here, and the red light comes back at the edge of the glass, softly, in its long, slow time, and fades, and the dark is here, and the warmth is here, and the breath goes out again, so slowly, so quietly, barely moving the chest now, barely lifting the blanket, and the warmth, and the hum beneath the warmth, steady and even and low. In and out. The light returns at the window, softly out there above the Atlantic, and fades, and the dark is the same dark it was, and the warmth is the same warmth, and the hum is the same low note, the same fine presence in the chest and the bones, steady even, and the breath is here, so soft now, so quiet, barely itself, and the blanket is at the chin, warm, and the seat is here, and the dark is here, and everything is very still, and the hum and the warmth and the light returning, softly at its long, slow interval, and the warmth and the right gently, not hurrying back, and the warmth and the dark and the hum beneath everything, steady and low, and the light at the edge of the glass coming back so slowly, so softly.